Everybody stand up right now to your feet and welcome Regina to the stage.
Thank you for the smoke effect. I like that. So the first important thing to know about my talk is my popular culture game is so weak that I had to ask Barrett who that song was by when we went through the run-through, and he's like, Beyonce. And I'm like, oh, the most popular person in the world. Right. Second thing to note is that my slides are gonna have a few more words on them than you guys have been used to. I need the memory prompts, okay? So bear with me. All right. So I'm talking about scaling back to scale up. And basically, this is a difficult process that I have been going through over the last almost 2 years of my business. And I want to talk about it because I think it's super, super important. And I'll let you know that it might be a little uncomfortable. You're going to see a lot of the how do I want to call them, not so great qualities that could maybe exist inside of a person or inside their business, that when you scale up with those qualities, you might run into a lot of problems. And so as an example, or to illustrate what I mean, when I was a kid, we were told that we had something called foundation problems with our house. And I had no idea what that meant because it was something way down deep that I couldn't see. All I ever saw was that it translated into sometimes the doors wouldn't close in our house and sometimes they would. And this was the shifting foundation. And the deal is, if you build a bigger house on top of a shaky foundation, that means that there are just going to be more doors that don't close correctly. It doesn't actually give you any benefit. IMO. So that's what the talk is about, okay? So first off, I want to note that you have all already done something super amazing that most people will never do, which is branching out and saying, hey, I want to create a brand. I want to start to connect people over a topic I'm passionate about, or maybe even you are now in full-time business, making money off of what you care about. Amazing, you've already done something awesome, but I want to talk today about how you can build a brand that doesn't have the non-closing doors, because I had a lot of non-closing doors in my brand. All right, so 3 things to this plan. So the first thing is to understand and build what I like to call your life model, which you notice, obviously, I did not say business model here. And one thing I'll note is change is very slow, especially if we have, like me, habits that you've grown up with for the last 30-some years. Change can be slow, so I recommend starting now. Second thing is to understand how you want to treat and serve people and interact with people. So these are the 3 steps of kind of like building a brand that you can scale up with and be happy with for a very long time. And the third thing, this is more to the business end, is focusing on how your people actually use online platforms. Because what I'm sure you guys have seen it, people are like, stop using Facebook pages, the interaction is low, or don't get on Instagram anymore, do a Facebook group, or whatever the advice is in the moment. It's great, you know, there are people who are out here studying metrics and statistics and all that great stuff. But my recommendation to you would be to focus on how your specific people are using social media, are using online platforms, and then to create content that caters to that, but also to be paying attention to where those platforms are headed. As an example, I've recently gotten into using Facebook bots. Anyone using those? Okay, a few people. Which I thought I would hate, because I hate anything automated. Just kidding, ConvertKit. I love you guys, obviously. JK. So the 3 things on the previous slide will direct the 3 things on this slide, which are your business model. You're going to find that your decisions are a lot easier to make. They're going to direct your content and your platform decisions, and they're going to help you decide how you want to sell. Because what I got into was a big hole of launching and doing all the things. 6 figures, yes, let's make it, 7 figures, whatever. And I realized that the selling was very uncomfortable for me the way I was doing it. So for those of you who don't know me, I want to give you 2 slides of backstory. So previously, I lived in Austin, Texas, and I had a lot of local businesses. One of them was making t-shirts. You guys, it was a hot mess. I did the iron-on t-shirts. I didn't know any better. People were paying me for them, though, so it was a business. Second thing I did was a cleaning business, and my first client was an NFL football player who had a house of maybe almost 6,000 square feet, totally miscalculated how long that would take to clean. So I showed up with one person that I got last minute to come with me, and maybe it was 8 a.m., and they're like, hey, we'll be back later today, just lock up after you're done, blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, no problem, we'll be out of here in a few hours. 7 p.m. rolled around, and we were still there cleaning their house. So I have some stories, but anyway, you guys. I had a lot of local businesses, so what I did was I started consulting people on how to build a business. They were like, what's an LLC? Should I go sole prop? Do you pay taxes? What, all the questions. So I started consulting people. And then I realized, wait, I want to help more people at one time because all these coffee meetings, I can only have so many in 1 week. So then I actually taught in-person classes at the University of Texas at Austin. Go Longhorns, anyone? Yes. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so I started teaching classes at UT, and I wrote this book. It was 150 pages of text and 50 pages of worksheets, whatever they're called, you guys. I don't speak English. And this was the first book I had ever created. It was $26.99 on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and I was helping more people through this book. And then I wanted to help even more people. So I started a website, and I started teaching online classes. And then that's when everything started to spiral out of control, I'll tell you. So first off, I did a paid course. I had done a free course online, but I did a paid course launch, and it made $1,300. And I was like, OMG, what in the world did I just discover? And so then, 8 months later, I did a second paid course launch, and it brought in about 22, and in profit, it was like $17,000. And this was the point that I was like, seriously, what is this online business stuff? So my background is I went to school for business, and so I was talking to myself, as I often do, what am I supposed to do now? Grow, like that's what I'm supposed to do. I went to business school. It's my responsibility to run a good business. And so the next thing was a $30,000 launch. And then the next thing was working actually with my roommate. We made these live events, and we were doing $70K a month running these live events, and we weren't even doing paid traffic. And then it's like, what now do I do? Grow some more, whatever that means. And so now I'm hiring employees, and now all of a sudden I have this like $100,000 a year in employee expenses, and I didn't even have a system for them to be hopping into, so they were kind of running around just trying to do whatever they could, and I became a tired, overworked employee of my own business. So now is where we get into the uncomfortable parts. And of course, I will explain that picture in a second. So really quickly, so you can understand, so I have this analogy that I'm sure you've heard before, but basically there are root problems, like when you have a tree growing, there are root problems that you can't see, and they grow up, and then they sprout fruit. So the fruit is what we typically see. We go, oh, that's an apple tree. But if apples weren't hanging from it, you probably wouldn't know it's an apple tree. So what was the visible fruit of my problem? And again, look, I told you guys a lot of words. It's okay. I stopped prioritizing the gym, I stopped lifting, I stopped doing yoga, I stopped cooking, which meant I was eating out. Technically, I wasn't eating out. I was always ordering Favor or Uber Eats, if you guys are familiar with that. I stopped prioritizing friends and family, and basically I lived in my living room in pajamas. I didn't leave my house ever, and as the slide says, I thought I was gonna have to marry the Uber Eats delivery guy if I wanted a meaningful relationship. What's up? How are you doing? I'll take that food. Want to get married? That's a no? Fine. So all of my work, all of my focus was on scaling, because I heard that was what we were supposed to be doing as smart business owners. So passion projects, such as the weird picture on the right, took a backseat to everything, and my health went down the drain. So that was actually this cool, wonderful concept for an online show that my friends and I had to do this like business makeover reality show. We had a photo shoot going, we had our whole Kickstarter planned, and creative, cool projects like this that we weren't necessarily hoping to make a ton of money off of or any money, all took the back burner, backseat, whatever. So what was the deeper root problem now, the things that we couldn't really see? I'm gonna be honest, this is the uncomfortable part. I'm judgmental, I'm very judgmental. or it definitely way more so when I was running into these problems. So being judgmental is not all bad, as in you can use your judgment to get you out of a dangerous situation, all of that. But my judgment was just going too far, and it's because of something that Chase hit on this morning. I was so focused on the larger jet planes, what are they called? Whatever they're called, jets that, whatever they're called, you guys, that everyone else had, and I couldn't even be happy with my baby jet plane that still probably cost millions of dollars. Also, I'm highly competitive. The weird picture over there on the right is my competitive skating days. So during my childhood, my coaches actually picked us up from elementary school. My brother was my partner. I didn't have a picture up here of him because that would embarrass him, even though he's not here. But we used to do pair skating, you guys, me and my brother. Anyway, so our coaches actually picked us up from school every day, and we were in the rink practicing hours. So from a young age, I had to compete. I had to win. We have to win nationals. That is what we do. So that's kind of how I grew up. Also, I'm a gamer. I really like to win. Halo, anyone? I love it. So I just had that desire to win. And so it happened that as you're focusing on what everyone else is doing and you're doing this comparison stuff, you start to make decisions out of fear. You're not paying attention to your business model. You're paying attention to what that person just launched or what they did or blah, blah, blah. And you start to make decisions out of fear to kind of catch up or whatever it is. And I highly recommend not doing that. So I have my little quote here so that I would not forget to share. This is how it kind of felt like, oh, so-and-so just released a course like mine, game on. Like as if multiple courses on the same thing can't exist in the marketplace. But like, it was this feeling of like, game on. Like, I'm a business serving the same market. I have to compete. I have to have a better course now, which I think competition is healthy because we all are constantly creating better and better experiences for our audience, but it can kind of take your eye off the ball. So I have like Apple versus the other guy's commercials. Do you remember those? Like, okay. But in my mind, I was kind of like, why does Apple even need to do this? Because their product is just so different from any other product and maybe it's just because I'm biased. I'm a super Apple person. My thought was like, they're spending so much time on money possibly on this marketing, but for what? And that's kind of how I had to address myself. But like, for what, Regina? Like, that's kind of how it was. So a lot of the focus that I was doing on other people was because I was really upset about some of the practices in our industry. So I have a blog that is about marketing, it is about self-publishing, it's about creating your own course, different things like this, and I was upset that people were using these outrageous claims on their sales pages or misleading people to think, if you buy this course, you too are gonna make 6 figures within the next 27 minutes, even if you don't have an internet connection. Okay. So a lot of Facebook ads were coming on my feed, and I'm like, I just don't like it. I'm gonna talk out about this. I stand for the people that I'm helping. And so I wasn't balancing my activist nature with moving forward. So activism with move forwardism. So yes, I do still feel it's my duty to use my voice and to speak up about things that I don't like or that I think harm consumers that I care about, but I also can't neglect my duty to innovate and to create great content for them. But that's the exact thing I was neglecting, and it was because of this one word that I've never even said in my life. Anytime somebody has been like, oh, are you jealous of whatever it might be? I'm like, no, I just, whatever. I don't think we like the word, but if I'm being honest, even though I was having a lot of success and I was having these large launches, I was making a lot of money and it felt good, I was still jealous. Jealous being envious of someone's advantages or success. And I was jealous that people who I thought were using methods that were so terrible were having great results and they were doing well. So as Chase was saying earlier, or I guess, wait, who is the quote from? Comparison is the thief of joy. Who's that quote from? Roosevelt, I knew that, thanks. But anyway, as Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy, or something like that. / Chase Reeves, whatevs. And you guys, it is. I'm sure you guys know that, but I want to say that, like, even me, who I think I'm so loving of all the people. I want everyone to succeed. Everyone, yay, all love, hug trees. I was still able to just become jealous and let it consume me, all right? My focus was on the wrong things. Here are a lot of words, so don't read them. Eyes down here, you guys, eyes down here. How did I realize the problem was me and not the people in my industry who were doing things I hated? Honestly, you guys, it was through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and yoga, and I will explain. So I started going to BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I really sucked. I mean, I so sucked at first. And it was a great process because I was definitely the dumbest person in the room, and I had to rely on people to not be upset with me because we would be partnered with different people at different times throughout a class, and I was the suckiest person in the partnership. And so I'm like learning some roles. By the way, if you've never done jiu-jitsu, you're definitely in between somebody's legs with your, it's like super weird. And I had to be that person who was messing things up and not doing them correctly and hopefully, or unfortunately, probably ruining their practice time because they had to explain so many things to me. And it was such a humbling experience to always be the one with the questions and always look super ridiculous. And so I realized that if I wanted to become good at this, if I wanted to compete, I was going to have to do it very slowly and in a smart way. You learn jiu-jitsu in a certain order, typically. And so now I can do an amazing rear naked choke, if you guys want me to show you that later. But prior to this, I couldn't choke somebody out to save my life, which is super weird conversation to be having right now. But anyway, I can now put you to sleep, for the most part. So anyway, so then also yoga teacher training. I started going, so it was basically 1 month straight of like 9 hours a day in the room with a bunch of yogis. And honestly, I realized during this process that I want to teach yoga. But what business do I have teaching students to love yoga if I place more value on the way one person does this asana, their position, than this person? Or, what business do I have teaching yoga if I'm in a position wondering if mine is better than theirs? It makes no sense. That's not what yoga is about. And so throughout this process of going to yoga teacher training, I had to teach myself very, very carefully and very slowly to not be as judgmental. And typically with judgmental competitive people, it starts with yourself. You're always focused inward, wanting to improve. And I had to be okay with my results, whatever they were. And I had to not compare them to anyone else's or place more value on this person than that person. It was a long process, you guys. But anyway, so what I started to do was prioritized not being the smartest person in the room. So I started doing creative activities or things like jiu-jitsu and yoga where I wasn't the smartest. I didn't know the most, and I had to learn from other people, and it was great. And I also remembered this thing that I'm calling my life model. And I realized that the way I was selling and the way I was growing and the way I was scaling didn't match with my life model. It didn't match with how I want to treat people and how I want to make them feel. If my brother's talking to me and I'm snapping at him or rolling my eyes or really wishing that I could finish the text message I was just sending, that is definitely not the way I want to treat people or the way I want to make people feel. But my business had grown so much that was my interaction. My typical interaction with my brother was just, why are you talking to me? And he's like my favorite person in the world. I told you guys, we did pair skating. That's important. So how do you start the process of change when you are the problem? I think the first step here is to understand the things that you are allowing to lead you further into negativity. And I say it's very important to understand you're allowing them to. Yes, people in your industry are doing terrible things. They're saying that people can make 6 figures even without an email list or an internet connection, and it bothers you. But if it leads you into negativity, you gotta unsubscribe from all of that stuff. So that might literally mean unsubscribing from people's email lists. That might mean not logging into Facebook, putting one of those blockers on, whatever it is in your life. So what is it that you're allowing to lead you further? Ignore that stuff. Understand the conscious choice that you're making. This is what I had to understand. When I place more value on what somebody else chooses to present me on Instagram or in their income report or whatever, if I place more value on that than what I'm creating, and again, this lines up with what Chase was saying, you're going to become unhappy. So make sure each move that you make relates back to those core life values, okay? So a lot of words, practicing change daily. To me, this means understanding how truly limiting jealousy can be. Because as soon as you look at somebody else's outcome, oh, they made $2 million, you've now limited your thinking to that. So you may be shooting for 2.5, but why would you not shoot for 238 million or 300,000 and you don't have any worries in life? You're much less stressed. So it's as soon as you focus on somebody else's numbers or their life, you have now limited your thinking, in my opinion. And then also, I want to say this, there's always a way to scale, you guys. It's 2017. The internet is so powerful. We just heard from multiple people today about niching down. Right now, I'm actually discovering and building in this niche of yoga for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists. So meditation, breathing exercises, flexibility exercises. So there's a niche, there's something for you. It's 2017, so I think the major challenge is to figure out a way to do it your way. It's not necessarily to be better than somebody else, whatever. It's more, how do I become as successful as possible without, taking a shortcut on any of my values, okay? So now that I have done this and kind of scaled back and then rescaled up, I've gotten more emails from people about how relieved and excited they are to now reapproach their business in their own way. And so now I'm able to make more of an impact. So last slide. 3 things to the plan. Just want you to remember these. Understand and build your desired life model first. Then understand how you want to treat, serve, and interact with people. And then focus on how your specific people are using online platforms and how you can use them and where those things are going. If you're focused on these 3 things, you will scale up in a peaceful way that you're excited about. And that is all I have for you today.